Wisdom gained through Mujeong, our path through turbulent times. Have you ever asked yourselves, why should we read books? Some of you might find it difficult to read books while attending school, or feel that holding a single book amidst busy daily life is as extravagant as a luxury. However, books are not merely tools to fill our knowledge. They greatly assist us in understanding the world we live in and ourselves, and at times, they can even open up new paths we never even considered. Today, I would like to introduce a novel that, though it sounds like a story from over 100 years ago, is surprisingly similar to our modern lives. This is the work Mujeong, in Humanity, by Lee Kwang-soo. This book is a landmark in Korean modern literature and also acts as a mirror that vividly captures the chaos and transformation experienced by the Korean society of its time. While the title Mujeong might seem a bit challenging, through this book, we can gain both the wisdom to navigate through harsh times and profound insight into how we should live moving forward. 1. When was Mujeong born? The turbulent early 20th century in Joseon. Lee Kwang-soo's Mujeong was published in 1917, about 100 years ago. At that time, Korea was in a dark era known as Japanese colonial rule. Japan had seized Korea's sovereignty and attempted to erase its history and culture, and the lives of the common people were filled with suffering and despair. However, at the same time, Western civilization was rapidly entering Korea, bringing a wave of enormous social change. Beneath the names Enlightenment and modernization, new education, ideas, and cultures began to flourish. During this period, traditional values constantly collided with new Western values. For example, the concept of free love, where men and women could freely love and marry, began to appear in a society that had considered arranged marriage as natural. The caste system was vanishing, and Western-style schools arose, opening educational opportunities for people of all ages and genders. Lee Kwang-soo himself was a person living through this turbulent era. Through studying in Japan, he encountered Western modern thought and literature, and he fervently wished to give hope to the people who had lost their country. Mujeong is a work born from the author's awareness of the era and his hope. It is an important record that showcases what the people of Korea were thinking and dreaming about during that time. Mujeong is not merely a fun story, it is also a window into the minds of Korea's youth at the time, how they welcomed the new era and how they wished to overcome the old. This book is evaluated as Korea's first modern novel because it has a completely different style, content, and thematic consciousness from previous novels. Through this novel, the author strongly conveys the message that our nation must accept Western civilization and be enlightened to progress. Here, enlightenment means awakening people who were trapped in ignorance and superstition to rational and logical thinking. 2. Main contents and interesting characters of Mujeong. At first glance, the story of Mujeong might seem similar to the familiar love triangle plots in modern dramas and movies. However, within it lies a much deeper meaning. The love and conflicts experienced by the characters symbolically represent the confusion and changes faced by society as a whole. Mr. Lee Hyung-sik, a conflicted intellectual in turmoil. At the center of the story is Mr. Lee Hyung-sik, a young intellectual who teaches English at Kyungseong School. He is a new-style person who has received modern education and absorbed Western thought. However, he shows conflict and confusion between the old and new eras while living in the new age. He becomes a teacher after diligently studying in a difficult environment as an orphan, but at times displays indecisiveness and a lack of self-confidence. Perhaps he embodies the inner struggles of Korean intellectuals of that era. He is a transitional figure who, despite receiving modern education, is still unable to completely escape traditional values. Park Young-chae, the tragic woman and victim of the old era. Mr. Lee Hyung-sik has a childhood fiancée named Park Young-chae. She was a woman who waited faithfully for marriage to Hyung-sik as promised by her parents. However, after her father was falsely accused by the corrupt Baesang and died, Young-chae was violated by Baesang and became a geisha. Young-chae tried to maintain the chastity and obedience expected of women in traditional Confucian society but eventually faced a tragic fate at the hands of the violent and corrupt society of her time. Her life symbolically portrays the pain of our oppressed nation and women. Although young Chai harbors resentment toward the man who abandoned her, Hyung-sik, she ultimately becomes trapped in the despair of outdated values, attempting to commit suicide. Kim Sun-hyang, the new woman, a beacon of hope for the future. The character who brings new energy to the story is Kim Sun-hyang. She is a typical modern woman, a daughter of a wealthy family who studied in the United States, and she is confident and intellectual. Fluent in English, she plays the piano and freely expresses her opinions, which was unimaginable for women at that time. Mr. Hyung-sik becomes attracted to Sun-hyang's progressive and modern charm amidst his complex relationship with young Chai. Sun-hyang is a character who realizes personal freedom and rights through education and actively forges her own life. In contrast to young Chai, who is trapped in the old ways, Sun-hyang represents the new woman envisioned by the novel. Bae Haksun, the embodiment of corruption and the old order. Bae Haksun appears as the villain who falsely accuses young Chi's father and torments young Chai. He is a greedy and power-abusing character symbolizing the corruption and outdated customs that plagued society at the time. The novel ultimately proceeds through the complex relationships between these three characters. Hyung-sik is caught between his guilt and sympathy for young Chai and his new love for Sun-hyang. Young Chai represents the tragedy of the old era, while Sun-hyang symbolizes the hope of the new era. Their triangular relationship is not a mere personal love story but an allegorical representation of how the old, outdated values clashed and merged with the new, progressive values of Korean society at the time. In the end, the three characters coincidentally meet on a train. Hyung-sik and Sun-hyang decide to send young Chai to a new school for education and to join enlightenment activities for the future of the nation. This conclusion reflects the era's intellectual sense of duty to save the nation through education and enlightenment rather than being trapped in personal love issues. Although Young-chi's personal tragedy is not fully resolved, the fact that she receives the opportunity to educate herself offers a hopeful message. 3. The message and implications of Mujeong. Mujeong is not merely an old story or a love novel. The novel vividly captures what our ancestors desperately desired 100 years ago and how they thought we should live. Specifically, it conveys the following important messages. First, the importance of education and enlightenment. The core message of the novel is the power of education. The fact that Hyung-sik becomes a teacher, that Sun-hyang acquires new knowledge through overseas studies, and that young Chai decides to receive education at a new school all show the author's strong belief that education is the only path to salvation for individuals and the nation. In the Japanese colonial period, where our people were ignorant and impoverished, Lee Kwang-soo conveyed the message that we must learn to survive. He strongly advocated that through knowledge, we must awaken and open our own lives and the future of the nation through rational thinking. Mujeong emphasizes that education is the most important driving force for awakening individuals and developing society. Second, the desire to abolish outdated customs and modernize. The tragic life of Park Young-chai shows how the old, outdated systems and feudal values caused so much suffering. Gender discrimination, remnants of the caste system, and the abuse of corrupt officials were obstacles that people in the new era had to overcome. Mujeong criticizes these outdated customs and expresses the longing for a free and equal modern society. It advocates for replacing forced arranged marriages with free love and respecting individual freedom and autonomy instead of the oppressive values of the old era. Third, the awakening of women and the rise of the new woman. The character Kim Sun-hyang would have shocked and inspired hope in the society of that time. Unlike traditional women who silently did household tasks in a male-dominated society, Sun-hyang confidently participates in social activities, speaks up her voice, and forges her own life through knowledge. This inspired oppressed women with the hope that I can become like her and set an example of the desirable role for women in our society. Park Young-chai also emphasizes the theme of women's awakening by showing determination to stand on her own after receiving education. Fourth, the cultivation of national consciousness and patriotism. At the end of the novel, Hyung-sik, Sun-hyang, and young Chai commit to dedicating themselves to enlightenment activities for the nation. This is the message Li Guangsu addresses to readers. It is a call to go beyond personal happiness and love and to serve and dedicate oneself to the country and the nation. The strong belief that awakened individuals through education can ultimately save a suffering nation flows throughout the work. Although it does not directly depict independence movements, the message that we must strengthen our national capabilities was of great significance in the colonial reality of the time. 4. Lessons from Mujeong for us today. What relevance does a 100-year-old story have for us today? We are not living in a Japanese colonial era or a time of ignorance without education. However, the messages conveyed in Mujeong still deeply resonate with our lives. First, it provides wisdom for navigating a changing era. The 21st century we live in is changing as rapidly as the Joseon dynasty of 100 years ago. With the rise of artificial intelligence and new technologies emerging daily, social systems are rapidly transforming. In this context, we often feel confused and uncertain about what to hold on to. Like Hyungsik, we find ourselves caught between the familiarity of the past and the novelty of the future. Mujeong teaches us that in such times of change, the most important thing is to accept new knowledge, embrace change, and strive to develop ourselves. The lesson is that while past experiences are important, maintaining an attitude of learning and exploration is essential to navigate turbulent times wisely. Second, it deepens our understanding of personal growth and social responsibility. Hyungsik, Sun Hyang, and Young Chai ultimately resolved to participate in enlightenment activities for the people. This shows us how personal growth connects to social responsibility. Diligently studying and working hard in our respective positions is not only for ourselves but also contributes to making our communities and society better. It makes us think about how we can use our knowledge and abilities for society, whether through small acts of service or fulfilling our duties in our positions. Third, it teaches us how to maintain our center amidst the collision of diverse values. Modern society is more diverse than ever, with various values and ideas coexisting, sometimes clashing. On the internet, countless information and opinions flood in, making it difficult for us to discern what is right or wrong. Just as the values of the old and new eras clashed in Mujeong, today's society also faces generational conflicts and ideological differences. This novel reminds us that in such conflicts, it is crucial to think critically and make rational judgments rather than blindly following one side. It is important to respect diverse opinions while reflecting on what truly is the right path. Fourth, it provides an opportunity for self-reflection. Are we possibly trapped in outdated thoughts or habits and unable to accept new things? Or are we, like young Chai, giving up on our own lives due to surrounding circumstances? Or are we, like Hyungsik, working hard but hesitating to make critical decisions at important moments? By reading Mujeong, we can have a precious opportunity to reflect on ourselves in light of the characters' lives. It gives us the chance to deeply consider our strengths, weaknesses, and the values we should pursue in life. Conclusion: Mujeong, not an outdated book but a living textbook. Ladies and gentlemen, although Li Guangsu's Mujeong is a novel over 100 years old, it is by no means outdated. Rather, it seems like a living textbook that provides the wisdom and courage needed to navigate a changing era. Reading a book might initially feel difficult and unfamiliar. However, as you read books like Mujeong, which raise fundamental questions about life and open new perspectives, your life will gradually become richer and deeper. This novel does show the harsh and cruel reality as its title Mujeong, inhumanity, suggests, but it also conveys the message of hope through personal will and education. No matter what difficulties you face in your life, Mujeong encourages you to persist without despair, to improve yourself, and to move forward toward a better future. Remember that learning has no end and the effort to develop oneself is the most valuable and timeless asset in any era. It's time for you to take your first step into a new world through Mujeong.